So the question was, if you would like to say a few words about your piece, and in particular, since I seem to hear recollections of some, for me, it sounded a little bit of Schubert. I heard a little bit of Winterreise in your opening measures. I was just curious about your relationship with the musical past that we all share. So.
Yeah. So about the piece, first of all, to explain the title, Before Farewell. Some friends of mine asked me about this title. Why isn't it farewell? What does it mean before farewell? And some of my other friends were anxious if I'm before death. So I can say there's not such a problem. I'm not before death. I'm healthy and working and so on. The question is not that. But I wrote it 6 years ago when I was 60, and I just realized that I begin to be in the period of my life which is really before farewell. And really, according to this age, there are things which change a lot. So I have to say farewell to things what I did in my younger years and so on. But there's also another aspect of the title that probably you also had the impression when one of your friends was going to die really, and you were before that, and you already knew that the death is expectable soon, but it's a specific feeling. It's not like the farewell at the funeral, but it's a feeling that you know you have to say farewell, but now you are present.
Yes.
So that's about the title. The piece is not a program music of this. That would be a silly idea. And thanks for mentioning Schubert, because in some of my early music from 40 years ago, I knew that some people from the audience mentioned that my music reminds them to Schubert. It's not because I use motifs from Schubert. I did once, but that was in another piece, a cello piano piece. But really, my music has a kind of sadness, what is there in Schubert's music. Mm-hmm. Probably you know this story about Schubert, that once he asked why he writes so sad music. And then he asked, is there any happy music in the world? This is my feeling. As you see, I'm a happy man.
Yes.
But music is another thing.
Yeah.
What I want to say in a poetic way, that is sad. I don't have much to say happy things about life and so on. Not now, but anytime. So speaking about Schubert, because I don't want to misunderstand anybody, I'm not connected to Schubert himself, but mm-hmm. I'm rather connected to the music of the past. So, of course, a composer is always asked whether he is connected to any of the composers of the 20th century whom he is determined by. I'm not at all. Of course, I like a lot of 20th century music and so on, and I dislike another lot. but my real impression and important impression is the music of the centuries before. Mm-hmm. And if you say that I'm too similar to anyone in the past, then I shall I shall thank for this and really really finish my composer's activity because I don't want to imitate anybody. But my impression, my close connection is rather to the music history than to the music of the present.
Yes, makes total sense. Would you like to say a few words about this piece in particular, just for the people? This the recording we're doing now will go before the performance, so something to introduce the audience to your music.
Yes, just one short thing, because it doesn't have a story, what I could tell. But there is one thing what is very important for me in all my music, what I wrote, that I'm writing a kind of speaking music. So that is important. Well, two things are important for me when I'm writing music. One thing is poetry, that I'm not writing dances and so on, but it's always important for me if I wrote a poem. So there must be some lyric moments or lyric substance of what I'm writing. And you going on this way, I always try to speak in music. So if you listen, if the audience listens to this piece, they will, I hope, they will.
Me too.
They will hear that the motives have a story which I cannot verbalize, but the same motive is once a question, once an answer, and again a question. So something happens to it with the harmonization, with the elements of how I modify the tunes. So the important is that it should be like a speech.
I think as a performer, reading your music and studying your music, I did feel very much so. And sometimes I seem to, because I did my thesis on Bartók, so I seem to actually hear Hungarian rhythms at one point. In the middle of this Schubert feeling I had, and I heard some Hungarian. So hopefully some Hungarian audience will recognize it too.
Yeah, it's interesting because this piece stylistically is so far from Bartók as from Mozart or Debussy or anybody else. But it's interesting that all Hungarian composers, if they don't write, let's say, minimal music in American styles or something like that, then they have a kind of Hungarian tune. In their behind their music. It's interesting. It's interesting from my young years that we had a concert in Slovenia in the 80s, and lots and lots of Hungarian composers were present at the concert with their pieces, and they were all different, from minimal art to this kind of music, what I write, and everything in between. And the critics wrote that that it's interesting that they are all Hungarian.
Yes.
I mean, in musical language. I wouldn't say on a piece of the colleague of mine who writes Steve Reich's on the way of Steve Reich, any Hungarian characteristics, but a foreign ear heard it like that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we could go for maybe another time. We'll talk about the relationship, because I've been very interested in these resonances that I hear in the music of all of you 5 composers I've been working on. And I do hear where you're coming from. And also the things that somehow you were exposed probably when you were thinking about this, and different influences. So it makes me, I'm very curious about what comes first, meaning you are in a place and you're inspired by that place, and therefore you play some music, or you actually are drawn to some places because that's the kind of music that you have inside that has to come out. So the references, I'm very a promoter of beauty, not only in art, but where we live, where we eat and where we live. And I think this is healthy, literally healthy for our spirit. This is a part of how we feed the spirits. That's why I was so interested in your relationship with your past and the music that we're all coming from.
Yes, yes, but I'm not speaking only the Hungarian music past, but the whole European or anything else. But,
Absolutely.
The whole European, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Good.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.